Okay, let's dive right into this. Self-will run riot. Today, we are exploring a truly fascinating concept from the foundational text of Alcoholics Anonymous, famously known as the Big Book. It's a deep dive into the human ego, our hidden expectations, and exactly what happens when we try, with everything we've got, to force the world to bend entirely to our own will.
So let me ask you, are you trying to direct the whole show? I want you to really think about that for a second. Have you ever caught yourself meticulously trying to manage everyone and everything around you, quietly convinced that if people just listened to you and did things your way, everything would be absolutely perfect? It's a supernatural human tendency. We all crave safety and predictability, right? But as we'll see through the incredibly sharp lens of this source text, it's also the root cause of a massive amount of internal and external conflict. To really grasp this mindset, Chapter 5 of the text hands us a foundational metaphor. It states, each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery. Just imagine that scenario for a second. Picture an actor on stage who isn't content just playing their assigned part. Instead, they are frantically running around, whispering directions to the lighting crew, trying to choreograph the background dancers, literally rearranging the backdrop. They want total, absolute control over every single element of the production, fully believing their vision is the only correct one.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core conflict of the controlling mind. The actor operates under this massive, heavy delusion, the belief that if everyone just follows their highly specific directions, the show will be a magnificent success and everyone, including themselves, is going to be incredibly pleased. Life would be wonderful. But what is the harsh reality? Life simply doesn't follow the script we write in our heads. The arrangements never stay put, people don't do what we want them to do, and when the show inevitably doesn't come off very well, the text points out that this controlling actor doesn't just shrug it off and adapt. No way. They experience intense anger, indignation, and just a deep, deep sense of self-pity.
Let's actually map out exactly how this plays out, step by step, because it forms a relentless and entirely exhausting cycle. Step 1. The individual attempts to exert absolute control over the play of their life. Step 2, because the world is inherently uncontrollable and other people have their own free will, the play fails to meet the actor's exact specifications. Step 3, instead of just letting go of the control, the person becomes indignant, angry, and drowns in self-pity, blaming all the other actors for ruining the scene. And finally, step 4, they double down. They try to force satisfaction out of the situation by becoming either way more demanding or sometimes manipulatively gracious. They exert themselves even harder, only to feed right back into step 1. It is a destructive, closed loop of trying to wrest satisfaction out of a chaotic world.
Which brings us to a profound rhetorical question posed directly by the authors of the text. Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? It really forces a moment of quiet self-reflection, doesn't it? The text is explicitly exposing the flawed logic of the human ego here. It's the tragic belief that flawless management equals happiness. The book even notes that when this person is trying to be kind, considerate, or virtuous, if their underlying motive is to manage others to achieve their own desired outcome, they remain a self-seeker. Even in their absolute best moments, they are a producer of confusion rather than harmony. So the crucial point is that this exact behavior is what the book defines as self-will run riot. It is a state of extreme self-centeredness and egoism. It is living completely driven by self-propulsion, operating under that persisting delusion of absolute control we were just talking about. The authors argue that this selfishness, this deep-seated self-centeredness, is actually the root of all our troubles. We might protest that. We might point fingers at external circumstances, bad luck, or other people's flaws, but the text insists that, at its core, the problem is an overgrown, riotous ego that just refuses to accept life on life's terms. But what actually fuels this ego? What's running the engine under the hood? Well, the text describes individuals in this state as being driven by 100 forms of 4 primary things: fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. These are the unseen forces of self-will run riot. There's the fear that things won't go our way or that we won't get what we want. There's the self-delusion that we actually possess the power to control the universe. Self-seeking behavior to bend outcomes to our favor at absolutely any cost. And of course, self-pity when the inevitable failure occurs. These motivations are operating silently behind the scenes of the actor's aggressive stage management.
Now, consider what happens when an actor is blindly running around a crowded stage, totally driven by fear and self-seeking, desperately trying to arrange everyone else. Stepping on toes provokes retaliation. The source text has a brilliant observation here, noting that as we step on the toes of our fellows, they naturally retaliate, and sometimes it feels like they hurt us completely without provocation. But the book notes that if we look closely and honestly, we invariably find that at some time in the past, we made decisions based entirely on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. Our aggressive need for control creates this unavoidable ripple effect of conflict.
This rigorous analysis leads the authors to one of the most sobering and profound conclusions in the entire book. So, our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. It's a massive paradigm shift. The controlling individual loves to cast themselves as the victim of other people's incompetence or life's general unfairness. But the text firmly states that the chaos, the resentment, the pain, it all originates from within. We are the architects of our own misery when we let self-will run the show.
While this theatrical analogy applies broadly to the human condition, the authors connect it directly back to the specific subject of their text. They identify the alcoholic as an extreme example of self-will run riot. Now, they do note an important caveat. The alcoholic usually doesn't think so. They often feel intensely like a victim of circumstances. But the reality of the illness, as described in the text, is that it is a manifestation of this absolute, unchecked self-centeredness taken to its most destructive, illogical conclusion. The drinking itself is almost a byproduct of this deeper spiritual and psychological malady.
And this is where the stakes become incredibly high. The text does not mince words here at all. Escaping this selfishness is a matter of life and death. For the individual suffering from this condition, ridding themselves of this self-centeredness is not just some nice self-improvement goal. It's not an optional lifestyle change you get around to when you have time. The book explicitly states that they literally must be rid of this selfishness or it kills them. The extreme nature of the illness means the extreme nature of the ego must be utterly dismantled in order for the person to survive.
So, what is the remedy? The authors make it very clear earlier in the text that human willpower and moral convictions are absolutely insufficient to defeat this overgrown ego. You cannot outthink or outwill a condition that is rooted in the will itself. The required solution is starkly, bluntly laid out. Quit playing God. It didn't work. The actor must officially resign from the role of the Almighty. They have to completely step down from the director's chair and acknowledge, with deep honesty, that their way of trying to run the universe has been a total and complete failure.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a practical framework. To recover, the individual must undergo a complete foundational role shift. Under the old role, they were playing God. They were the demanding actor trying to frantically control the show and everyone in it. Under the new role, they become an agent. They must allow a higher power to become the new director, the new principal, and the new employer in the drama of life. They step back and say, I am in the world to play the role assigned to me. It's about entirely replacing self-reliance with a profound reliance on something greater than the self. The book calls this concept the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which they pass to true freedom.
Now, what's really fascinating about this entire concept of self-will run riot is how deeply it challenges our modern obsession with control, the endless hustle, and sheer self-determination. It asks us to find true freedom and peace in surrender, rather than in endless management. Which leaves us with a final, lingering thought to ponder today. If you were to stop trying to arrange all the lights, the ballet, and the scenery, if you completely stepped off the stage and gave up the script you've been forcing on everyone else, who would you let direct? It's a big question. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this deep dive into the source text gave you a brand new perspective on the illusion of control.